We're back with another episode of Hacked by Halftime. And today we have Rich Greene with us. Rich, to me, is a cyber truth teller. He goes by the Bard. He's also the host of the podcast Plain Text, which if you haven't listened to, you need to go run and listen to it right now. And he's a SANS instructor as well. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Travis. I have to say, when I first reached out, I'm like, man, Hacked by Halftime. First off, phenomenal title for a show. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot of great ones out there, and I think I really, really enjoy mine, but I think yours has like another layer of just awesomeness to it. So this is actually pretty stoked. No, I am really, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm stoked to have you. I follow your content constantly. We were just speaking a little bit before, and it's like, I don't know how you do all the things that you do when there's only 24 hours in a day. The amount of content that you're able to push out, the education that you're able to provide is just bar none. I also saw some TikTok style dance videos that you got pulled into that were phenomenal. But with that, I'll also let you introduce yourself as well.
No, you're spot on. I do. There's that saying, and I'm gonna mess up the saying completely, right? They tell you to, if you find something you really enjoy, like you never have a job, or some weird old adage like that. And I really do think that's the point I am in my life. And I think it's why I can do so many things, because I'm fueled just by like an unbridled passion for like not even just the field of cybersecurity, but I think for me, it's honestly like the teaching aspect of that. So because of that, it's just, I joke along with most people. I don't know. I really classify myself as human anymore. I just feel like I'm a nuclear reactor, like walking around in a skin suit, because no matter when you run into me, if you can meet me in person at a conference, virtual right now, and it's the same level of energy that no matter what time of day it is, just because I genuinely enjoy it. But yeah, Rich Greene, 20 years in the Army, Green Beret, SANS author instructor, host of Plain Text with Rich, which is a podcast. Like I'm always dancing on videos for Resist. It doesn't take a lot to get me in front of a camera, no matter what. Somebody's like, "Hey, can you do this?" I'm like, "Is there a camera?" Yeah, I'll be there. It's I really just I'm at the point where I'm just loving life. Quite honestly, there's no other way I can put it.
It's got to be exciting, right? You talked about the teaching, SANS 301. You're starting to see the light bulbs come on as you're teaching, I imagine. So that's got to be like a huge driving factor of when the aha moment kicks. You're like, success, this is awesome.
No, people always ask. They're like, "Rich, do you teach any other classes for SANS?" They're like, "You've done all these things. You can teach more advanced things." And I'm like, "Yeah, I could, but there's something that is the most amazing feeling when you're going over a concept that some people further on in their career will honestly they take for granted, right?
Yeah.
And when you're given that concept to people that are brand new, I love it. Like there isn't another feeling that can that can compare to what that is. And that's why I stick with 301, because they just don't know. Number one, they haven't been beat down by 10, 15 years in the industry, right? So they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They want to be there. They're super excited to learn. They're like, "Yeah, cybersecurity." I love those people. And I want to be that perfect beacon to bring them in, because I'm pretty sure you have attended training where the content was probably not exciting. The delivery was not exciting. And therefore, it just makes it a very, very long and arduous process.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, because that's what I do. Introductory topics in cybersecurity are not glamorous. They're not super exciting. They're not very fun. So you need to have a level of storytelling and performance arts, right? The Bard, to carry that process along. And that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're exactly right, because nobody wants to walk into a class and it's like, hey, we're going to talk about governance and risk today and go through those principles. It's just not a good time for anybody. Or like 80 slides, right? And it's like, we're just going to talk the slides. So I think that storytelling, and plus like you said, all of those years in the industry that you have, the expertise that you have, you're able to tie an actual real value and real life story to that of the importance, but not do it in a bland way that's just like beating students down.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the goal, I think, with any. And SANS always gives me a rash for this because they call us SANS instructors. I personally am not a huge fan of the word instructor, because when I think of instructor, I think of somebody just talking at you for an unknown amount of time, right? They're just giving you guidance. Where I prefer teacher, because I think a teacher empowers people to learn. But
Absolutely.
sans probably doesn't like the word sans teacher, doesn't have the same connotation and
Yeah.
ring as a sans
They don't get the
instructor.
same flex, right?
No, it doesn't have the same one. But you're right. Anybody can read a slide. Anybody can watch a video. I think what makes that process really, really special is skipping the slides, skipping notes, and really providing some type of real world connectivity, right? Contextual
Yeah.
linkage between the concept that is on the slide, the things you're reading in the book, and like real life. And I think that's the trick right there.
Yeah. And that's what sticks with you during exam time. It turns onto your brain to say, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's what that means." So that's good. So, hacked by halftime, we're focused on the sports industry. I've posted a few things on LinkedIn, but one of the struggles that we're seeing right now is a lot of people believe athletic directors and things of that nature at the college level believe kind of IT is the same thing as cybersecurity, right? And it's a common, for those outside the industry, it's very common that that's kind of the thought process. But when you looked at the organizations that you've worked with, what do you think separates those that treat cybersecurity as like true business risk versus those that still see it as an IT type function? And then applying it to sports organizations, what are the real consequences? And I think it applies across industries when leadership doesn't make that mindset shift.
Of course. When I look at organizations I've worked with, right, the ones that treat cyber as actual business risk, they usually have one thing in common. Leadership talks about it in terms of revenue, reputation, and continuity,
Mm,
not its firewalls or patches, right? Their CISO has like an actual seat at the table, not a chair in the basement, not hanging out with HR, not buried under this weird line and block chart that means you have to ask for 17 people's permission to do anything, right? Security really shows up in quarterly earnings conversations. It's in M&A due diligence or mergers and acquisitions, right?
yep.
Product decisions, all that stuff. The ones that really look at it like IT only, they still ask like how much does this cost instead of how much does this protect? I think that's the biggest difference, right? I think it's what's the term I usually use? People refer to it as like revenue loss. And I don't think we should look at it as revenue loss or like a black hole of
Yeah.
budgeting when it comes to cybersecurity. Like we need to really focus it as an investment into an organization. And I think the ones that look at it just as a revenue loss focuses it more like the IT only shop, where the ones that can truly look at it as an investment in an organization, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Now, we take that same concept and we apply it to sports. I think the consequences are different, but they're still brutal, right? A league or a franchise, like, look, that's a brand. It's a media company. It's a real estate operation, right? It's huge, right? Data business stacked on top of each other, right? That's crazy. And when leadership in this case treats cyber as a help desk's problem, I think you get game day outages potentially, right? That can go viral. Ransomware that delays broadcast, kills ad revenue. Breaches of player data that torch trust with the talent, like
Yeah.
sponsorships don't renew after headlines. I mean, regulators start paying attention, and we all know that you don't want regulators involved in your sports, right? Fans were the only, not the only, but the whole economic engine, right? They start asking why their payment info ended up on a form. The
Yeah.
shift here from IT problem to business risk, I don't truly think is philosophical. It's a difference between like legit surviving an incident and explaining one to the commissioner. And just because we haven't seen these things yet, I don't think they're too far off the horizon.
And that's what kind of looking forward, because I mean the attack surface, any organization really, any franchise, the National Women's Soccer League is blowing up right now. Like
Mhm.
the stadium operation alone, you take away player data and all those kind of things, the stadium operation alone from a cyber threat, it's got to be so enticing when you're talking OT systems that, if not segmented, they touch credit card payment systems and all of these kind of crazy things. And I think in the future, we could see that with, I mean, we have so many ways to do close access operations. And for those who are unaware, that's essentially a device the size of your phone can start picking up frequencies and signals across the stadium, possibly to use for malicious purposes. So I couldn't agree more. I think it's on the horizon, and that brand and reputation is going to suffer if not integrated in those mindsets that you say.
Think about it for a moment, right? If we go a couple years back in time, and I joke with my students in 301 about this all the time, about the honor among thieves. There was a time in life when adversaries, we didn't target, I say we, I'm not an adversary. Should probably fix that really quick. There was a time in the past when adversaries wouldn't target hospitals. They wouldn't target organizations that dealt with like recovery assets or like human life. Those things were like you didn't mess with those things, right? You went after in their minds the Fortune 10s, the Fortune 500s, right?
Yeah.
The greedy organizations that existed out there. And now that it's no longer the case, like in today's landscape, like everything's fair game because there is no more honor amongst thieves. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's just a matter of time when some adversary, right, no matter what tier they're going to be, realizes, you know what? The Boston Celtics have bunches of money.
Yeah.
I'm going to start targeting that entire apparatus. And that's going to open up, I think, a whole other thing that we just haven't discussed enough.
Yeah. And it's huge. I think once it starts getting into those forums, right, of having discussions, because like the healthcare industry is a great example of like, hey, that's a no. We don't touch that. People could die. But now that you see ransomware just locking out hospitals sometimes from doing anything, I think it drove a conversation and a lot of changes within the healthcare industry in regards to cybersecurity. And I only hope that the sports industry gets ahead of it before it becomes one of those things that we're reading. Like, I remember the one that sticks out to me about when the largest hospital in the UK just got ransomware out. And it was like, it's nuts. And I think once that happens, we start shifting our mindsets, but I hope we can get ahead of it. And that's always the
Also,
hardest thing. Yeah.
and we have to. I mean, there are literally, I mean, you can pick and choose your franchise or your sports, but there are players that exist in this world that earn more than a lot of small to medium businesses by
Yeah.
themselves. Like the money's there. It's a ripe field for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fast. This is a perfect transition into kind of our second topic here, because it's one thing I talk to colleges about all the time is NIL, right? So NIL has enabled, I mean, there's even high school NIL now in a lot of states that allow high
Mhm.
school athletes to get to get money. So we're talking about anyone from 15 to maybe 24 could possibly get deals ranging from $10,000 to, I mean, some athletes are getting paid $8 million or $12 million, whatever the case may be. In the industry, when we're looking at cybersecurity, we would consider that to be a crown jewel kind of asset of like, hey, we need to protect this. It's high visibility. The public really cares about it, and our brand is kind of built around this. But in this case, it's a person. The brand is built around the person. There's a lot of public visibility. They have to be publicly visible because that's how they're driving their revenue. When we compare this to like NIL athletes, do you think they're operating with the same threat awareness as other high value brands, right?
I'm gonna say, in all honesty, I'm gonna say no. I from my vantage point, I don't believe they are. Now, I say that with I'm not inside those conversations. I'm not inside those deals with agents and all those players or athletes or everything. But from my experience and just what I know of human psychology, human nature, I don't think they are. Most aren't probably because I don't think when you have agents and lawyers and potential athletes having those conversations, I just don't think that cybersecurity or like the threat awareness from a digital perspective is really on par with what you'd see, right? Because that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about sponsorships and commercials and all the other things they can have in potentiality there. It's not
Yeah.
security. And it's scary because not even professional, like you said, even dropping down to potentially some high schoolers now, right? They carry the brand value of a potential Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 company if you go down that high school level. And as you mentioned, like the visibility of a Hollywood studio because they have to be there. That's the whole point of NIL. They have
Yep.
to be out there, right? Name, image, and likeness. And again, I'm not inside a lot of these franchises, but typically speaking, I would lean towards the IT maturity is
Yeah.
not there as much, right? We probably look at anybody here like a mid-market business more than likely, and that's not great. But I would like to say potentially, hopefully, the industry's catching up. Maybe again, we compared it to financial and specifically the healthcare market itself, right? Their programs were younger. They had to go through a lot of struggles, which are going through now, to bring a lot of that reform on. I think the same thing's going to happen here, right? Most sports franchises, I would say, their security programs probably again, younger.
Yeah.
The budgets are probably smaller, fragmentation across franchises. Even if you look at like professional, the G League, right?
Yep.
They're still owned by the same parent, but even there's probably a huge fragmentation just across
Oh,
same
yeah.
teams inside the same franchise. Venues, third party vendors, right? Create gaps. It's crazy. And again, right? All that adversaries care about is this is just making your attack surface enormous.
Yeah.
Payouts are going to be high. The urgency to stay operational on game day is going to create that leverage for ransom. Again, the athletes themselves sitting on personal wealth, endorsement relationships, biometric data.
Yep.
Most of them are protected by whatever Wi-Fi password their agent's assistant picked, right?
Yeah.
The threat awareness, again, I don't think it's zero. I just don't think it's calibrated to what they're actually worth.
Yeah, and that's one thing when I was looking at it, doing some research is small and medium-sized businesses, you may have anywhere from like 1 to like 10 to 15 IT guys, maybe a cybersecurity person, maybe. Usually it's purchased through like a Microsoft package or something, and they just say, "Hey, we have EDR and or endpoint detection through Microsoft, and our emails are safe through Outlook," right? And then I started thinking about NIL athletes who carry that same level anywhere, like we just talked about, 15 years old up. And I'm thinking to myself, well, they definitely don't, or most likely don't. A majority of them have a dedicated cybersecurity analyst. They might have, I don't want to even say an IT person, because it's probably more than likely like an AV person who's like, hey, I'll set up the cameras and all of this kind of stuff, or a producer for whatever they're doing, right? But they're not carrying the same staff that a small to medium sized business with the same fiscal value is going to have. And it's just fascinating because at a certain point, push comes to shove. And it wouldn't shock me if in 5 years we're seeing cyber criminals just kind of jump all over this, because it's low hanging fruit to an extent for them, and the TTPs that you would have to employ to kind of get the same value that you would going after a business is, hey, I can just target a person and run that route.
Oh,
So
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah. Like, I think I was talking to you. It might have been you and I talking back and forth in email or maybe LinkedIn, or I
yeah,
could have been having this conversation with somebody else because I look at the same thing, but on the military side, right? Because I'm always thinking about how would I have effects on the military side.
yeah,
And with the advent, I won't say the advent of social media, but I will say that there are more uniformed service members actively filling social media, we'll say influencer roles,
yeah,
right? With millions of followers, which with that probably comes a significant amount of revenue income from them for all kinds of different things.
oh, yeah,
Especially if I start targeting, the again, E4 specialists, E5s, E3s, right? The ones that just got it, went viral, they have so much coming in. Like that's who I'm targeting, right? Because what I want to do is I want to take over their devices, take over their digital persona and be like, look, if you want this back, this is what I need from you. I need you to
exactly.
do A, B, and C. And the younger they are, that influence is a lot easier for me to have over them, to get them to do something that they normally wouldn't do. I would have to say the same thing I feel would be likely in like your 15, 16, 17, 18, maybe even early college NIL deals
Yep.
where their whole thing is sitting on this. And in those cases, I'm probably not trying to do anything, but I might lead to like digital extortion.
Yeah.
It's like, we all know
And
perception is 9 tenths of the law in today's world. I have all these
exactly.
now because of AI, digital incriminating photos and videos of you. If you don't
Yep.
do this, this, and this, I'm releasing these. And then your NIL deals are going to tank. Your scholarships are going to tank potentially, right? Because
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
investigations. But like that's the kind of leverage that we're now potentially going to be seeing.
Yeah, and that's what is concerning to me most, right? Like, we can all say like, hey, money comes and goes and stuff like that, but we understand like for people that's life-changing money. It'd be life-changing money for anybody. ESPN did a great analysis, had to be 6 months, 8 months ago, about sextortion that was occurring within when account takeovers occurred. And it was talking about through like social media DMs, essentially, there was illicit pictures, and there was high schoolers that have killed themselves because of this, right? And that article came out, and to me, it was like, whoa, hey, people, wake up. And we kind of see this in the cybersecurity industry a lot, though, where we've become kind of,
Licit.
yeah, complacent. Yeah. And I think when they start to look at athletes as just like assets and not humans, they're just like, hey, sounds great. Like, sorry, maybe you should have, you know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't as blown up as I thought it would be, which is unfortunate. But I think it's going to become that digital extortion. And one thing I was thinking about recently is competitive intelligence, right? Where you would have other franchises or college teams being like, hey, what's this playbook look like, right? Like, what's going on with this? And it's nuts to think about. But then I was like, all right, well, let me see if there's any evidence of this occurring in the past. And it was like, I found two or three where it was like a guy from the Houston Astros went to the Cardinals. They never got rid of his credentials and he logged in and took like a bunch of scouting stuff. And then I'm like, well, if they're willing to do these things, like, hey, it wouldn't shock me in the future if they're like, we got to get an advantage somehow. So this is what's going to go down. But
It's
yeah,
sports, right? I mean, again, even outside the adversarial way, even outside of digital, nefariousness,
yeah,
teams have always looked for that competitive edge to win, right? It doesn't matter what it is, from sign stealing to recruitment tampering to you name it, teams have tried it.
exactly. Yep.
When that one kid comes in, that's a new staffer, that's whiz bang hot on a computer, and he's talking about we can do some things.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, as long as it's not illegal, it might be a little unethical, but as long as it's not illegal, like it's just
yeah.
nuts to me. But with that being said, you bring a really unique perspective. You talked about your time being a Green Beret, right?
Mhm.
So that's special operations for those who are unaware for the audience. And then you have experience in pen testing as well, both of which are kind of rooted in thinking like an enemy to an extent. How would the enemy move and do this? And how do we counter that to an extent, right? In traditional industries, that mindset is critical for kind of looking at your weaknesses and covering them up before you get exploited. If we apply that to individual athletes, as we kind of just talked about, what are some of the ways that you would think like an adversary, and where do you think they're probably most exposed today, if you would?
Okay. Let's see here. Adversary thing is one of my favorite things. Again, I always refer to myself when I say adversaries, we. And I think it's
Yeah.
just like it's innately built into my bones because that was like my lifeblood. But when I think about it, like adversary thinking, we know like in traditional cybersecurity, it's not a nice to have. Like this is the whole game. It should be for some organizations. I think some organizations struggle to truly understand threat modeling and adversary, like true emulation. But here, I think it changes, right? When you've been on the other side of the wire, which I'll use in this term, you stop assuming the front door is where the attack comes from, right? So from like a sports perspective, you start looking at the laundry service with badge access, or like the previous player that still had access, the stat tracking app the training staff uses on personal phones, their charter flights onboard Wi-Fi, the family members posting real time geotags, right? We can look at that really quick. The NFL had a whole bunch of break-ins
Yep.
last season, I believe,
Yep.
but really good articles to read, like how they were able to pull all of those off. Defenders who haven't thought like an attacker, right? It's weird, right?
Yeah.
They just build a very, very flimsy line around the corporate network. And then they miss the fact that the star quarterback spouse just clicks like a fake DocuSign link. And that becomes like a huge problem, like a really, really big problem, if you were to ask me.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to think where sports and all sports is probably most exposed right now, I would probably say you have three places that kind of line up for me.
Okay.
First is going to be the human perimeter, right? Around the athletes themselves, right? When I think about that, we're talking about families, agents, trainers, their inner circle, right? We all know those are like four things here. It's really going to be kind of a cherry point for me, or like a crown jewel esque or adjacent. Because you got to think, they all have direct access to the principal target, right?
Exactly.
If we think about this now, if we take a step back, the family, trainers, the inner circle, I'm willing to bet they have zero security training.
Yeah.
Just going to throw it out there. The second exposed area, I think, would be the third party vendor mess, right? Recovery tech, performance analytics, ticketing partners, broadcast crews.
Yep.
They're all plugging into the systems that touch that sensitive data, as you said, right? If we're not properly segmenting our networks, that becomes kind of a problem, right? Because we're just allowing them access potentially. And all the contracts, if you really dive into those, probably rarely really enforce like real security. Again, when we're talking about the entertainment industry, and I don't want to say sports or entertainment, but I'm gonna kind of loop it in that. Security, again, isn't really, I think, one of the primary, secondary, probably even tertiary things that these people are talking about when it comes to contracts. And the third thing, you've already brought it up, which is OT, or operational technology, right, at these venues. Like, For those that have maybe not been to a stadium recently, like legit stadiums are like full on cities right now. I mean,
Yeah,
like fully functioning, like HVAC, lighting, access control, point of sales, broadcast infrastructure, right? And when you look at all those things that I just listed, a lot of that is probably going to be legacy unless they just rebuilt the stadium, right? But if you look at,
exactly.
a team that's been around for 5, 6 decades who hasn't, renovated their stadium, there's
Yep,
a good chance a lot of that stuff's going to be legacy. Most of it's probably going to be internet connected. And almost again, none of it was designed with an adversary in mind.
yep,
So if I were scoping like a red team engagement for a franchise or a league, those are the three doors that I would
exactly.
probably most definitely target first, which is exactly why defenders need to get there before I do. Not I. They,
Yeah,
not
I'm on the good team, I'm on the
one of the
good
good guys now.
and it's one of those things, I think you nailed it when we start talking about the inner circle as well and not having security in mind. And it's kind of one of those things years ago you probably didn't need to have it in mind, right? Of like, hey, that's my buddy from high school. He's been with me my whole life and he supported me or whatever the case may be. And now he's part of my inner circle. Well, buddy doesn't update the iPhone because of XYZ. And all of a sudden, they're bringing that home with you into your home Wi-Fi, and now you got a bigger problem. And it's really interesting because teams provide physical security for all of this stuff, right?
Mhm.
For star players, like you mentioned, star quarterback and stuff like that. And so they understand threat to an extent of physical, but it goes back to kind of the first topic we addressed is looking at how you protect that investment. It's not a cost sinkhole. It's really like, hey, we need to spend the extra $10,000, $20,000 to protect this business asset that we have that is very important to us. Because, for example, if a Patrick Mahomes, a Caleb Williams, a Lamar Jackson goes down reputationally, it hurts. Even if like it does at the end of the day. Like the Kansas
Yeah.
City Chiefs are Pat Mahomes, and Pat Mahomes is the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's one of those things where it's like it would be a huge business loss of like, hey, we can't really market them the way that we want to right now. We got to cool it down a little bit. Hope this goes, whatever it is, goes under the rug or whatever the case may be. So it's just fascinating to me. And I agree with you I think about it adversarial all the time of like, hey, if I were to actually flip the switch and want to do this, if I was a cyber criminal, this is probably one of the biggest markets right now that no one's kind of tapping into. And then you talked about flimsy defenses there and not thinking like an adversary. And I couldn't agree more. We had Joey Riddell on a few episodes ago, and he teaches cyber threat intelligence at the University of Arizona,
Mhm.
stood up a SOC and everything like that. And he made a great point about cybersecurity analysts that don't think about threat are already they're done. They're gonna be done because the threat is what's driving your whole industry. If we didn't have threat, cybersecurity wouldn't have a sector,
Yeah.
right? He was talking about how he teaches analysts like cyber threat intelligence and how to think like the adversary. And I just thought that was brilliant. And you said it there, and I was like, man, the ones that know what they're doing, it's a huge part of the job, right? Is like, hey,
It has to be, man. I actually have my it's like a early plug, depending on whenever this goes live. But
yeah,
my next podcast episode is actually on cyber threat intelligence and what I think organizations are doing wrong. Even though I don't sit in a CTI role, like part of my career was in intelligence, it was more on the human side of the fence. And I can't stress enough. Like if you just look at like alerts and IOCs and that's kind of all you're doing, he said you're failing. Like you've already lost. It doesn't have to be every SOC analyst, right? Because not everybody's gonna have a penchant for being like an intel driven mind. But those that don't have at least some people that are legitimately going out there and digging for like adversarial information, just threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence, sports threat intel, whatever field you want to put that into, you have to have people that are thinking about these things. You just have to. They kind of do it. Like when you think about things like the Super Bowl and the World Cup,
yeah,
all those really large events, you'll always read how they're bringing in the Cisco's and the Palo Altos and all of these things, right? For these large events. If you're doing it for those, why are you not doing it for everything else, right?
yeah, exactly.
It's the same concept, but we again, I just don't think they truly They don't truly understand the value of what they have. Like they understand the value, don't get me wrong, right? Because
Yeah.
they're paying however millions of dollars. But it's like it would be like having like a multi-million dollar home and having like a screen door on the front, right? With no
Yep.
alarm. I am
Yeah.
not using the adequate defenses to protect my investment, as you said before.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. And again, I just feel that the industry hasn't, there's that saying, right? Everybody has a plan to get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Healthcare had no plan until they got punched in the mouth. And now they have all kinds of plans coming into place. I think, unfortunately, this industry, the sports industry, is hopefully doesn't have to come to that. But you're all right. Like the second, like a Patrick Mahomes, right,
Yeah.
it is not tainted, right? Because an investigation will happen. It'll determine he probably didn't do these things. But again, perception is 9/10 of the law. And no matter what, reputational damage is no different than fiscal damage. Then they're gonna be like, oh crap, like maybe we now need to think about this. And it'll take, unfortunately, things like that to really drive change. I just wish it didn't have to come to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough, Rich. This has been, you're awesome as always. Your enthusiasm, man, it gets me stoked. We covered a lot of great topics, and I hope to have you on in the future as well. Hopefully, it's about how they were able to protect something before it occurred versus, hey, remember when we talked about a year ago? This is what we were talking about. But again, for all of those out there, go listen to Plain Text. I promise you, it's not as long as my podcast. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes and you're getting everything that you want. It's not about the world burning. It's about teaching how to do cybersecurity properly, how to kind of demystify everything. So Rich, can't thank you enough, man. Thank you.
Travis, thank you so much for having me. And I truly do look forward to coming back on. Like you said, hopefully talking about the good things the industry has done to fix it and not, rehash things like regular cybersecurity where we've been talking about passwords for 5 decades. We love it. Thank you again.